Welcome back, everyone. Again, my name is David Heineman. For today's technique, we are going over the two-hand lapel grab. For today's lapel grab, we're going to focus on a stationary attack. Now, there are variations of the lapel grab that can occur, one being up against the wall, another being is if they're doing a two-hand lapel while pushing you or a two-hand lapel while pulling you. But for today, we're going to focus strictly on the two-hand lapel if we're both in a stationary position. So, a few things to take note before we even get into the technique. When they do a two-hand lapel grab, the first thing to notice is that from the attacker, both of their hands are occupied. So the threat level for me of having to worry about weapons or punches or strikes is low. If they do decide to engage in throwing strikes or pull out a weapon or whatever the case may be, that works in my favor because when they go to throw a punch or grab a weapon, one or both hands are going to release from my lapel, which in a sense gets me out of that position. Now I then have to deal with another attack, but for this specific defense, if they let go, I just got out of the defense without even having to throw a strike. So just keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is most of the time when attackers are attacking you with grappling positions such as this, especially if it comes from an inexperienced attacker, they're not thinking about the rest of their body. So they're not going to be paying attention to their legs, they may not be paying attention to their surroundings, they're simply focused on having a strong grip and essentially trying to remain dominant in this position. So keep in mind that during this attack we will focus a little bit on the legs for this, but more so in the sense of a distraction. Because if I can keep my attacker focused on the legs and not on the grips, it makes it easier for me to defend the grips if I can keep them focused elsewhere. If my reaction time is fast enough, as they are grabbing before they even have the grip locked up, you do have a slight window where I can completely defend this attack before it even happens. But again, that depends on your ability to react quickly. So obviously if we're standing here in a neutral position, they decide to reach for my collar, jacket, whatever the case may be. If I see it coming, it's as simple as pushing it out of the way. All right? But the thing to keep in mind is I can't just stay stationary and push it out of the way in this sense because we're still facing each other. So my goal is as it's being put on, I have to turn and push it out of the way as well, because that also takes me away from her ability to reach me easily. When I turn, I'm turning in what we call blading. So blading is the sense of when I turn and I'm stepping sideways, or some of the people you'll hear call it opening the door. When they go for that reach, I'm blading or opening the door and simply pushing the hands aside. Then I can engage in whatever else I need to do for the self-defense, or I can just get out of the situation by simply backing up, making some distance, and keeping my hands up. Other options, I can simply push down, get my hands up, I can simply push out, and again put my hands up. Those are just simple ways. It doesn't solve the fight, but it just keeps them from grabbing me in the first place, while also showing to not only the attacker, but any of the bystanders around you that, hey, I'm not looking for trouble, I'm keeping my distance, and I'm ready to protect myself. For those who have been in martial arts for a while, or if you've been around Hapkido or some of the other more joint lock disciplines, you'll notice that a lot of instructors teach joint lock manipulation in this sense. Now, I grew up learning the same joint locks, the wrist locks, arm bars, shoulder locks, whatever the case may be. As I started getting into a bit more of the grappling disciplines, I understood that there's no way in hell that I'm going to be able to simply restrain someone's wrist or simply put somebody in an arm bar based off this position. If the attacker has a full lock and their arm and body is completely locked out, I can go as hard as I can, and I'm not simply going to be able to maneuver the wrist. I'm not going to be able to maneuver the arms, especially if this person is resisting. Your best bet is to find a way to release the grip by putting on whatever pain you need to put on and then getting out of the situation. So I have two options that I prefer to use when it comes to a two-hand collar grab. First one, I want to grab underneath the tricep. If the person is wearing a long sleeve, whether it's a jacket, a long sleeve shirt, a hoodie, you can grab the material and use that as a grip. However, depending on the time of the year or the individual, obviously they may be wearing a t-shirt, no sleeves, whatever the case is, I'd rather just depend on something that's always going to be there, which is the back of the arm, right? So I'm going to simply just make a C grip, cup the back of the tricep. I'm not squeezing the arm by any means, I'm simply just cupping and holding on. Now, the motion that I'm going to go for is a simple tug. Do not expect to be able to completely pull this person all the way into you. Again, if this person's completely locked out, ready to go, you may only be able to move this person a little bit, and that's all you're looking for. The reason is, I want to pull this person in close enough that I can hit them. If this person is strong and putting on a lot of pressure, if they're bigger than you, I may or may not be able to reach them. Either way, it's not worth your time to try and get a hit right out of the gate. I'd rather ensure that they get closer to me before I even waste my time trying to strike, so that when I do land a strike, it's a lot more powerful. So for that, I grab the tricep, I pull. The same time that I'm pulling, I'm going to throw a strike at the same time. Now, realistically, if I hit this strike properly, one or both of their hands are going to release right away because they need to cover for the pain. So as I strike, you're going to expect the person to cover their face or both hands to cover the face as they just got hit and they're looking to defend themselves. If that's the case, perfect. You back up, your hands are up. Again, I'm creating that distance and showing everyone that I'm not looking to fight. I did the job, I defended the grab, and I'm free. Again, I grab. Now, it's not a slow pull. It's going to be a quick tug. However far they come into is going to obviously depend on the individual. Some may only come a little bit, some may come a little bit closer. Either way, it's a two-step process. First step is pull, second step is strike. Ideally, do them at the same time. If this person now at this point is still holding on, they haven't released the grip is still tight, I don't want to sit here and just completely wail on the person. I've done my strike. The hand that is grabbing the arm is going to fall back to the palm of the hand. The hand that struck is also going to fall back to the palm of the hand. Now, what I'm going to do with my feet is whichever side I'm grabbing on, that same leg is going to step back. And again, I'm going into my blading motion. Now, as you notice, the slack in my shirt has now just gotten drastically tighter, which is a good thing. When I'm sitting here and there's a lot of slack, the person is able to get a nice strong grip on the shirt. When I step back, that slack gets tighter. It makes it harder for this person to hold on, especially when I have both hands on here and I rip it straight forward. Now I've just released the one grip. If this grip is still on, that's fine. I can cup it with the one hand, follow up with a backhand, follow up with another strike. If they're still holding on, do the same rip. Hopefully by this point, they've now released this hand. And again, I can disengage, I can keep my hands up, and I'm ready for it if they come at me again. So all together, I'm going to grab, pull. Same time that I'm pulling, I'm striking. Whether you go under the chin, to the nose, to the eye, whatever the case is, but I'm just doing a palm strike to the face. Both hands come back to the hand as I step back, rip straight off. And again, it's a clean, strong rip. I'm not pulling nice and slow. Rip it off like a Band-Aid. Throw in a couple more strikes if you need to, and I back away. If during this whole process I'm struggling to get this grip off, I'm struggling to get the second grip off, whatever the case is, I don't want to sit here and just completely wail on the person's face. Maybe one strike and I come back here. If she's still not letting go, I'm going to now go for my kicks. So one option is a stomp on the top of the foot. This is not one that's going to completely impair this person, but it will put some pain, and the biggest thing that I want is it's going to give her a distraction. Now she's going to be looking down at her foot, which means for a split second this grip is going to loosen up. That may be the window I need to rip the hand off. If she's still holding on nice and tight, throw a couple stomps if you need to. If that's not working, I can come up and kick the top of the thigh. That's one technique, that's one option. Another option that you have, some people have seen and taught what we call the snake. Now, the snake method that I learned initially was coming through and doing this. Now, as I mentioned before, if this person's grabbing nice and tight, this is never going to happen. Because again, we're still facing one another. It's a lot easier for her to keep her arms level than it is for me to try and simply just maneuver them. So if I do want this technique to work, I now also have to step in and get closer to her. So as I do the snake, which means basically my one hand comes over one and under the other arm, as I'm doing this, you'll notice that my feet are going to step, and again I go into this blading position. Only the difference is instead of stepping back, I'm stepping into my attacker to close that distance. Same time that I close my distance, I'm feeding the arm through. Now the arm that's over the first one, I'm going to snap and tuck my arm as hard as I can with the goal of tucking her elbow to her side. When I do this, again, I can't stay here because all she has to do is level her arms right back out, and I'm going to be right back to where we started. So this has to be a quick motion. I come in here, I collapse her arm, my free hand now comes behind both arms, serves as a post. As this is going on, the hand that I snake through, I'm actually going to pull out and strike. Now, again, hopefully from this position, her hands have now let go. Realistically, they should, based off the fact that I just struck her in the face and she needs to now cover for protection. But because of variables that could come into play, that may not be the case. So once I've struck here, I can still bring my arms back and rip the grips off. Or with the hand that I have here, after I've struck, I can take both hands. As I step back, I'm going to push both her hands forward. So again, as I'm stepping and turning, that hand feeds through. I get nice and close to my attacker. This hand serves now as a post. I pull my hand out quickly, I strike. If they let go, perfect. Kind of push them away from you a little bit to create extra space, and I keep my distance. If they're still holding on after all that, bring your hands right back, shove the hands off, and again, break that distance. Understand that when you're in this position, I don't have to worry about anything else other than the grip. But if I decide to engage in a tighter clenched position, now I have to be wary of whether or not she knows a wrestling background, a judo background, a jiu-jitsu background, or any other form of grappling. Because if she now decides to put me in a bear hug, a choke, whatever the case is, I'm essentially at her hands at this point because I don't know what's going on. If I can keep the distance, get close enough to do my strikes, and then break that distance, that should be my ultimate goal. Not trying to get closer and stay close. Again, they've grabbed me, I want to break those grips, and I want to get out. Don't try and waste your time. It happens a lot when people get put into situations that they're not comfortable with, where they essentially panic defend. What I mean by that is they're simply going to try striking the hands off, pulling the hands off, trying to just slap the hands and get the hands away, try and push the person, try and strike the person. Don't try and worry about all that. Focus on what the point of the attack is. The point of the attack are the grips. I have to break these grips before anything else can happen. You're not going to be able to break the grips right out of the gate, so in order to do that, I have to get close enough to where I can put pain on the brain, which loosens up the grips for me. Now I'm in a safe place to break the grip. The reason I have to put that pain on first is if I just start trying to break the grips right away, she's going to realize that that's my objective now. And if I sit here trying to break this, there's nothing stopping her from releasing one hand and striking me, from coming in close and grabbing me, from charging towards me, tackling me, whatever the case is. I'm leaving myself vulnerable to pretty much any other attack if I solely focus on the grips. But if I give her something to worry about, and while she's stunned from the strike, now that gives me my window to defend myself properly without putting myself at risk for a future attack. So just understand, this is a threat, but it is not a dangerous threat by any means. Focus on breaking the grips, but do the proper steps to get there without putting yourself in a worse position that you're already in. So again, that is a two-hand collar grab from a stationary position. Later on, we'll go over what happens when they do a two-hand collar grab, driving through, pulling, or a two-hand collar grab up onto the wall. So thank you, hit the subscribe button, and we'll check you all next time.